Throne and Liberty is arguably the biggest upcoming MMORPG release of the year and will be available to play on Steam, Xbox and PlayStation on September 17th, 2024. If you haven't heard of Throne and Liberty before, this is a free-to-play fantasy MMORPG developed by NCSoft, with its Western publisher being Amazon Game Studios. This is a game that's attempting to be the modern spiritual successor to Lineage 2, which means, yes, a heavy emphasis on large-scale PvP. I know you're thinking about clicking off this video right now, don't do it.
Stop it.
I know the words Korean MMO, Amazon Game Studios and PvP all mentioned together in a short space of time sounds bad, but let's be honest, almost all MMOs nowadays are bad, but we still play them anyway. Let's just try to figure out how bad, because if it's only slightly bad then the game could still be fun, thanks to the euphoric feeling of new MMO dopamine. Throne and Liberty is set in a vast, fully open world that emphasises exploration through various ways of traversing the terrain via shapeshifting. The combat is tab targeting, and the battlefields are dynamic, influenced by real-time changes in weather, time of day, and player interactions. The game offers a decent variety of both PvE and PvP content. On the PvE side of things, you've got challenging dungeons, open world bosses, dynamic events and instanced solo boss challenges, as well as questing, professions, achievement hunting, and all the usual jazz you'd expect from an MMO. As for PvP content, the game has open world PvP, 1v1 duels, open world PvP limited events, guild vs guild battles, and the ultimate endgame in the form of castle sieges, which offer large scale warfare where groups fight to control a massive fortress. I had the chance to check out Throne and Liberty for its Korean release, and I very quickly had strong opinions about the game. My first impressions vid is definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it already, but in this video we'll take a deep dive into the game and ultimately try to answer the question, will Throne and Liberty be a success or failure? But first, today's sponsor, The Elder Scrolls Online Gold Road. ESO's new major expansion is here and brings over 30 hours of new content, taking players back to beloved locations from Oblivion. In ESO Gold Road, you'll dive into the continuation of last year's Necrom chapter storyline. This update introduces an epic new system called scribing, where you can manipulate the nature of magic itself by collecting and customizing special skills. With grimoires, new types of skills for existing skill lines, you can tailor your builds to play exactly how you want. The Gold Road chapter unlocks a scribing-focused questline featuring new characters and a fresh storyline. The new story, Return of Athelia, takes place in Westweald, a region on the borders of Cyrodiil, the Gold Coast, and Valenwood. Here you'll investigate the return of Athelia, an all-new Daedric prince, and protect the people of Westweald from chaos whilst uncovering the schemes of Athelia's devoted followers. Westweald itself is a new zone to explore featuring a mix of familiar and unique environments. You'll encounter new chapters, challenges, rewards and stories, along with new delves, public dungeons, world events, world bosses, unique collectibles, item sets, antiques, and a new Tales of Tribute deck. Additionally, the Gold Road chapter introduces a new 12-player PvE trial, Lucent Citadel. So what are you waiting for? Dive into the adventure and download The Elder Scrolls Online Gold Road on PC, PlayStation and Xbox using the link in the description. So to figure out if TL will be a success or failure in the West, let's first look at how things went for its Korean release. Throne and Liberty's Korean release was bumpy to say the least. It was received so poorly by their domestic player base that the NCSoft stock price plummeted by 12% on the day of release. And this is what some players and the press had to say about the game.
I myself have insomnia. I just played the TL quest for 10 minutes and fell asleep.
NC is a game company that selects good games, right? LOL. They only make this because pigs and dogs play it LOL.
Aside from the fact that there are individual differences in graphics, gameplay, etc. When you first look at it, it smells like a mobile game. I think it will come out on mobile next year. Haha.
When I first started it, I went to town and saw that the computer was screaming. The controls were so weird, and the characters were intermittent, so I immediately deleted it.
So yeah, not off to a good start, but what's with the overly negative reaction towards the game? Is it genuinely bad, or is there more to it? Well, one reason for the poor early reception of Throne and Liberty could be NCSoft's reputation in Korea. Korean MMO players often have different opinions from us Western MMO players, but both groups share a common distrust for the likes of NCSoft. This company was once beloved for creating popular games like Lineage, City of Heroes and Guild Wars. However, in recent years, NC NCSoft has damaged its reputation by releasing low-quality, pay-to-win mobile MMOs, which understandably has angered the MMORPG community. As a result, this negative sentiment towards NCSoft likely contributed to the lukewarm reception of Throne and Liberty, as players were skeptical about the game's quality as well as the company's commitment to delivering a great gaming experience. So what does the game actually offer? After spending a few hours watching videos from Throne and Liberty content creators, here's what I've learned. The game is very grindy, which honestly shouldn't bother most fans of sandbox MMOs, as the thought of slaying boars for thousands of hours to get to the next level is ingrained in our blood. This may however be off-putting to fans of theme park MMOs, who typically prefer progression to mostly come in the form of a narrative-driven linear MSQ. The mass PvP in the game tends to be very chaotic, which leads to the same outcome on every server. The most powerful guilds form alliances and completely dominate the smaller, scattered guilds. This dominance makes open world PvP frustrating and unenjoyable for most players. This means that smaller guilds and solo players have little chance of competing or enjoying the PvP aspect of the game. As a result, the open world PvP experience becomes miserable for everyone except the dominant alliance. To be fair though, the devs are trying to fix this, and they've recently introduced various changes that try to mitigate the zerging, by completely reworking how the guild vs guild system works, and by assigning players to random factions during open world bosses, regardless of which guild they're in. The combat in Throne and Liberty is, at best, average, especially when compared to other popular games like Lost Ark, World of Warcraft, and Black Desert Online. In contrast, Throne and Liberty's combat feels less polished and lacks the same level of excitement. The core gameplay movement and mechanics feel clunky, static, and repetitive. As a result, players who have experienced the superior combat systems of pure PC MMOs may find TL's combat to be underwhelming and less enjoyable, which isn't what you'd expect from a brand new MMO. Additionally, unlike many recent Korean MMO releases, Throne and Liberty went with a more traditional tab target combat system, which some people hate, but I actually think tab targeting still feels good as long as it's highly polished. World of Warcraft's tab targeting combat still feels amazing even in 2024. Throne and Liberty's combat, however, feels much worse than the combat of other tab target games such as WoW, Guild Wars 2 and Arcade. This for me was the main reason I stopped being excited for TL. What's the point of playing a game with inferior combat to WoW when I can just play WoW? Throne and Liberty has pay-to-win elements. Whilst people might debate the extent of its pay-to-win nature, it's clear that spending money gives players an advantage. For example, the recent introduction of a monthly fee pack allows players to progress faster than those who don't pay for it. At this point, MMO players are so used to Korean devs slowly dialing up a game's monetization from slightly pay-to-win at the start to giga pay-to-win a year later, that people just don't trust these companies anymore. Throne and Liberty already suffers from a significant botting problem, which is made even worse by the autoplay mechanics that were initially part of the game, and this issue is likely to become much worse on the North American and European servers. In Korea, regulations require that players must have a Korean SSN and Korean mobile number to create an MMORPG account, which massively helps control botting and limit the number of players willing to attempt hacking or bug abuse. The NA and EU servers won't have this deterrent, and as we've seen from recent Western MMO releases published by Amazon Game Studios, games like New World and Lost Ark, Western MMO players have no problems botting and cheating. In fact, there's quite a large financial incentive to do it when you consider how much money gold farmers can make. I can definitely see botting being rampant on NAEU, which could create a wider gap between players willing to cheat and those willing to play by the rules. Around a month after the Korean release of TL, many players started to complain that the game had a lack of content. This kinda surprised me considering the game has been in development for 10 years, and is designed to be more of a sandbox, which typically does keep players entertained for longer. Perhaps the players complaining about this were PvE players, I'm not sure. And finally, the leveling experience is quite boring and repetitive. I myself just didn't find the early game experience as addictive and satisfying as other MMOs. Quests were unintuitive, buggy, and poorly designed. If players have a miserable experience whilst leveling, they're not going to stick around to see the end game, even if that end game is good. Another way to gauge the potential success of Throne and Liberty is by looking at the release metrics from Korea, as they provide the only objective data available for analysis. It's worth noting that Throne and Liberty has been in development for over a decade now, likely costing upwards of $100 million in development costs. Also, being the successor to Lineage 2, expectations were naturally high. Many anticipated that TL would instantly inherit the success and popularity of its predecessor. However, this wouldn't appear to be the case. Throne and Liberty only reached rank 20th in Korean PC bangs, basically gaming cafes, in the first few days after its Korean launch. And this is the time when you'd expect an MMO to reach a peak in player count. MMOs typically lose players quite dramatically in the following months. During this time it ranked just above Lineage 2, but trailed behind Lineage 1, Aeon, World of Warcraft and Lost Ark. For comparison, similar games like Lost Ark and Black Desert reached the top 5 around the time of their respective releases. The fact that NCSoft didn't disclose any specific metrics for Throne and Liberty in their latest investor earnings report also paints a really bad picture. Imagine you're an NCSoft investor, there's a massive release that's just came out, 10 years in development, and the company isn't bragging about how many players this game has after such high expectations. Guess what I'm doing with my NCSoft stock?
Dump it.
NCSoft did however make a statement regarding the game's reception in Korea. They mentioned that many users criticised Throne and Liberty for being a typical NCSoft game. Interestingly, they also noted that the feedback from global users during closed beta tests and technical tests didn't align with the criticisms typically seen in Korea. This discrepancy in feedback could suggest that the game may have a different reception among international players compared to Korean players, but maybe that's just cope from NCSoft. A few months after I first played TL, I felt a bit puzzled by the lack of buzz surrounding the game. Curious, I checked into various Korean streaming platforms and message boards to gauge the community's response. To my surprise, considering it was a fresh release, I encountered somewhat of a desolate landscape. On Twitch, the game was virtually non-existent, which could be attributed to the platform withdrawing from Korea. However, even on Afrika TV, Korean's main streaming provider, the scene was rather quiet. The game's message boards were also filled with doomers. It seemed like there was a prevailing sense of skepticism and disappointment among players. Typically, newly released MMORPGs enjoy a much longer honeymoon phase before players begin to lose interest. However, Throne and Liberty appeared to be struggling right out of the gate, which is undoubtedly concerning and not a promising sign for the future. Another concerning event that happened recently was the news that the director of the game, An Jong-wook, has stepped down from his position. This resulted in some reorganisation of the game's leadership, with executive director Choi Moon-young, who's been involved with the project since the early 2010s, taking over as producer. The reasons behind An's resignation hasn't been disclosed, however the change in leadership doesn't seem to have affected NCSoft's plans to launch Throne and Liberty globally, with Amazon Games still targeting a release of September 17th, 2024. So who is Throne and Liberty actually designed for, and will it be a success or failure? Fundamentally, Throne and Liberty is a very niche MMO. It's not very solo friendly, it's heavily targeting the kind of MMO player that enjoys large-scale guild-focused games such as Lineage 2, and combat-wise it lacks the depth and smoothness of games like World of Warcraft or Black Desert Online. My hot take is this: the combat and gameplay in Throne and Liberty is the single biggest reason why the game is likely to fail when it releases in the West. If you're going to release a tab target MMO in 2024, the gameplay needs to, at the very least, be as good as World of Warcraft. Why do we have MMOs releasing today with worse gameplay than stuff that was released 20 years ago? Well, isn't it obvious? The mobile MMO market is so huge nowadays that every MMO needs to be designed to eventually have mobile crossplay. This means limiting the amount of abilities on your hotbar, slowing things down, janky ass movement, and other various limiting factors on the back end. In terms of systems, graphics, and content, Throne and Liberty sounds like an incredible MMO on paper, and I genuinely believe if the devs purely focused on making this the best PC MMO possible, then the game could have been incredible. Instead, the devs made the mistake of trying to appeal to all platforms, PC, console and mobile, which just results in a mediocre feeling product. In hindsight, they should have taken the Black Desert Online route, where you've got 3 separate versions of the game optimised specifically for each platform. You've got BDO PC, BDO Mobile and BDO Console, each of which are slightly different and have had relative success in maintaining their own player base over a number of years. The problem of designing an MMO that's one shared server for PC, console and mobile is that the gameplay potential is capped to the maximum potential of the most inferior system, in this case mobile. So even though Throne and Liberty does indeed have beautiful graphics on PC, with a massive open world, you still can't shake the feeling deep down that gameplay-wise, it feels like a mobile game. And for that reason alone, despite many other contributing factors, is why I personally believe that Throne and Liberty will definitely not be considered a success, and is most likely to be another MMO failure. I hope I'm wrong though. On paper, this is the exact type of MMO that I love to play, and to be fair, even if it's trash long term, it will probably still be really fun at launch like most MMOs are. But that's it for this video. What are your predictions about the future of Throne and Liberty? Do you disagree with my assessment that the gameplay isn't good enough? What are you most looking forward to about this game? Obviously, I'm going to play it regardless at full release, and I hope this video doesn't come across as too doomer. I'm just trying to set expectations. If you're an MMO fan and haven't done so already, consider subscribing to the channel to keep up to date with the latest MMO content, reviews, hot takes, and news. Also, be a bro and click the like button to help us out in the YouTube algorithm. It really helps. Social media on screen, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.